Okay, awesome. So I'm Sarah. I'm a first year medical student at the University of Saskatchewan, and we will get into some introductions. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming to this webinar hosted by the Medicine Working Group of the Canadian Social Prescribing Student Collective. We are dedicated to advancing research, education, and advocacy in social prescribing. This is just the first event in our speaker series, and we have more great events with speakers working tirelessly to make social prescribing a reality here. We are always open to new members and new initiatives. So if you're interested in joining our team or learning more, please reach out to us at the email provided in the chat. For our event tonight, we will start off by getting to know our guests, and we will have plenty of time for your questions, comments, concerns, and suggestions. Please feel free to unmute or post questions and comments in the chat. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed guests, Darlene Darby and Jess Hayden. Darlene is a proud First Nations woman from DeKalb and Chiwepim Nations. Darlene, Darlene has been a licensed practical nurse for over 10 years and has recently accepted a position as an Indigenous health liaison. Jess, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we can get into the questions.
That's what else we do. Good day to all. My name is Jess Hayden. I'm with Squamish Nation on my dad's side and mixed European settler on my mom's. I've been a licensed practical nurse since the start of COVID. I'm actually also bridging to my RN through Athabasca University on my spare time. But yeah, I've been with the Indigenous Health Liaison Program for about 2 years now, and I work out of Chilliwack General Hospital.
Great, thank you for your introduction. So we're going to be running this kind of like a panel style. I have a list of questions prepared, but feel free to kind of chime in whenever. And yeah, so the first question we have is, so you're both Indigenous health liaisons. For someone who has never heard that title, how would you describe your roles? And specifically, how does this differ from a regular nurse or social worker in supporting a patient's journey from the hospital back to their community? So you guys can go ahead and share.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Sorry, we're just getting together. We're figuring out our audio technical. Again, thank you for the welcome, Sarah. My name is Darlene Dalby, and I also want to introduce, I've actually had the opportunity to bring my colleague, a social worker with the IHL program, along, and it's Sherry Marino, and she's also new to the IHL program, but I wanted to introduce her because I think she'll have some good insight from a social work perspective as well. So we're going to do that. And as to answer your first question, it was kind of part of my slideshow. So we're going to move to the next screen. Yep, perfect. Did it work? Yeah. Again, we're just kind of winging it here. There we go. Down there. Actually, before we get started with questions, respectfully, we'd like to acknowledge the territory that we're working from today. We'd also like to acknowledge the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, specifically the Kwantlen First Nations, where we are coming presenting from this Zoom meeting today. So hands up, we always like to respectfully acknowledge the territories. And so this is for your first question. What does an Indigenous health liaison do? Very simply, as per our program details for the roles and responsibilities, pretty straightforward. There's helping navigate the healthcare system. Essentially, the role is very fluid. These are the kind of programmed responses to that question, but because our role is very fluid, we do a lot more than just what's kind of outlined here. We work alongside healthcare providers, supporting decisions and care planning, connecting with elders, cultural practices, and of course, the Indigenous community resources. More so, we kind of just meet our Indigenous clients where they're at. If they need help with navigating, you know, how they're going to get home or the things that they're going to do prior to discharge. Yep, absolutely. All the resources that we kind of entail, we actually wait for the Indigenous clients to ask us what they need. We try to meet them with what they need. So even though these are the roles and responsibilities, we've done things as simply as picking up some milk for somebody and bringing it to their house, buying them a drink if they need it, listening, cultural experiences, dressing changes, things like that. So part two to that same question, it differs in the fact that even though Jess and I were LPNs and Sherry's a social worker, it difference is the, I guess it's about the care that we're providing the client. We're not doing bedside washes. We're not administering any medications. Our whole job is taking care of their spiritual needs and making sure that they're feeling safe in the hospital. So that advocacy part where we're making sure that everybody's doing what they should be in a respectful and dignified manner. From a social work perspective,
From a social work perspective, hi, my name's Sherry. I'm from Muskegon First Nations. I'm an Indigenous health liaison with Darlene. She's my partner at work at RCH. And from a social work perspective, we work with all ages. So we have babies in NICU, we have elders, we have everybody from in a very highly traumatized hospital. And I think our biggest role is to advocate and, as Darlene said, like make it a safe space for our Indigenous peoples. It's historically been a colonial institution kind of feeling. So I think that our role is changing the perspective of a lot of Indigenous people. And we have a lot of people who really appreciate that and like stay on after, and we follow them up in community afterwards as well, just to make sure that they're settling after their stay in the hospital.
yeah, that wraparound support is essential for a lot of people. Jess, do you have anything to add?
So yeah, they covered it pretty well with our role. So while we have the designation of a licensed practical nurse or social worker, we don't necessarily actually work in that role, but it brings that extra knowledge and perspective to the work that we do. And yeah, it like they said, we work across the lifespan, and we help support people. Uh, you know, for Indigenous people, being in the hospital can be quite overwhelming, and it can be a hard experience for a lot of people. So we're there to just make sure that they're receiving culturally safe and confident care, and help connect them to elder and cultural supports while in hospital.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. Darlene, do you want to continue with your PowerPoint presentation, perhaps? And we
Yeah,
can
sure.
kind of follow up with some questions.
So that's roles and responsibilities. So I tried to incorporate some of the questions into my PowerPoint, and I felt that it was important that it was kind of written in a way that really truly embodied the way that we're looking at healthcare, especially here in BC. Um, First and foremost, that healthcare hasn't always been kind to Indigenous people. Uh, with colonialism and very systemic frameworks, hospitals tend to have a place in Indigenous perspective as not a safe place, as not a good place. So we want to look at the bigger picture, of course, to see how we can make improvements. And one of the biggest improvements was that our federal government um, committed to the Truth and Reconciliation, the 94 calls to action, by implementing ways to improve, ways to do better in healthcare, especially in regards to our Indigenous peoples, our brothers and sisters. So it's been a critical time now that we're seeing a lot more people in healthcare. the First Nations, the Inuit, the Métis people have become demarginalized mostly in healthcare. So we're trying to do better. It's including British Columbia, but this is all of Canada, really. The initiatives are doing well. It's a basic first step. I think there's a lot of work to still be done, but having our program as the initial like first step is really showing some really good results. I feel like there's a sense of trust, a bit of safety, and again that bigger voice for people coming in to seek healthcare. So I just want to read through my slideshow. First Nations people had a sophisticated system of healing and living that made them the hardiest people on the planet. This knowledge still exists and deserves a rightful place in Canadian healthcare. First Nations knowledge has a place in healthcare and society as a whole. It is important that Canadians develop the understanding of First Nations explanatory modules of health, healing, and life. And again, I think that's a follow-up question, but it was really kind of hitting all of the check marks by saying that we don't actually look at our patients from a physical perspective. It's very holistic. We look at everything that's going to happen for them with their healing journey from the minute they walk into the hospital until the minute they get home again. So it's very encompassing with spirituality and the connection to land and Mother Earth. So the next slide. So there's a holistic view where we kind of look at First Nations knowledge is strongly linked to the natural world. Like I said, Mother Earth is very much incorporated to the work that we do. Languages, cultural practice, and oral traditions. And I'm going to say even up until about 50 to 60 years ago, and it's within our within this generation of people, these practices were not allowed. Having a cultural practice or a cultural practitioner come in as one of our elders, a traditional healer, was not allowed in the hospital. We couldn't come in and do a smudge at the bedside for one of our First Nations people. So we're seeing these steps and these improvements and these things that are encompassing First Nations people as a whole as a really positive step. Again, First Nations people are very connected to Mother Earth. First Nations people see the relationship with each other and the earth as a balance. So if something's out of balance, everything's out of balance. And especially when they're at their most vulnerable in healthcare, in the hospital, there's a huge balance shift. So we're trying to bring that energy, that good holistic energy back to the bedside where they need it most. Supporting the client, of course, and then their families and their extended families and children, whoever's their caretaker at the time, those are the people that we support. So it's not just about the client, it's a full circle of care. We wrap our arms around everybody that's involved with making decisions. I think I could stop there if we want to jump in with other questions, because I feel like the resource question was closer to the end.
Sure. And Jess, if you have anything you want to add, please do.
Yeah, sure. I'll add to that. I think Darlene really nailed it. So yeah, it's looking at that like kind of spiritual health and traditional medicine, people will just look at the body and the problems that are in it. But it's only more recently that people are thinking about, spiritual health and social health and even mental health. We're kind of divulging more into that holistic perspective. So yeah, I think we covered it. So yeah, if you wanted to go on with the second question there.
Sure. So our next question, social prescribing connects patients to non-medical activities like community groups or cultural practices to improve well-being. If you were prescribing to a First Nations elder dealing with loneliness, what might that prescription look like? And how does it compare to a traditional medical prescription?
Yeah, so I guess if I were to do a social prescription for a First Nations elder experiencing loneliness, it would probably focus on strengthening that kind of cultural connection, community belonging, and opportunities to share and receive knowledge. Instead of medication, the treatment would be meaningful activities that are rooted in Indigenous identity and community life. So like a key part of the social prescription could be kind of connecting the elder with like say a nearby friendship center, which often hosts like programs specifically for elders. I know in Chilliwack specifically, we have a few like elders luncheons. I know Squaw First Nations does one on Wednesdays. And there's also one on Fridays with Stalo Nation. Like, yeah, a key part would be that connection. And it might include like elder circles or weekly social drop-ins if they have crafts or programs that could even connect like elders with youth. Um, it could also be supported in, yeah, like I said, like the elders lunches and community programs with shared meals and conversation and laughter and gentle activities that kind of create a sense of comfort and connection. You know, with our elders too, they experience a lot of loneliness as they age because, you know, if you think about like the different like even in like psychology, if you think of the different levels, like the hierarchies, you know, as elders kind of retire, then they kind of withdraw from their roles in society. So that's where you have a lot of that kind of withdrawal, like they're not able to do like the same activities and stuff that they used to. And a lot of people become more secluded and isolated as their loved ones are still taking on key roles, like the grandchildren are in school, the parents are working. So it is really important to make those connections. So, you know, sharing that food and doing movement or cultural talks with knowledge keepers, you know, that kind of cultural connection can really help. Overall, unlike a traditional medication prescription, which focuses on the treatment of symptoms and medications, a social prescription that emphasizes relationship, culture, purpose, and belonging. It kind of recognizes that many First Nations elders like wellness comes from reconnecting with the community, practicing cultural like ceremonies, spending time with others, and having opportunities to both teach and be supported.
Great. Thank you so much. And Darlene, if you wanted to add in anything.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I feel like Jess nailed it. She did really good on answering that question. And if I could only add, there's always that loneliness factor for a lot of our Indigenous elders. But I find that actually people who want to be included in their community are. So there's always that, you know, like especially in Indigenous culture, your family is who you say they are. So it could be your sister is your neighbor, your aunt, so the people that you respect and look up to. It's not like you have like your biological family. So there's always connection. And I feel like a lot of our elders that are connected to their community on in one capacity or another, they're always supported if they want that. I think I don't see a whole lot of elders actually that are typically on their own. If they want to be connected to a group, they are. Yeah. That's it. Next question.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'll move on to the next question. Based on your experience, what is the most critical function of a link worker, and how do they empower a patient to take control of their own health and well-being?
So, I don't know if I know that the word link worker is what?
Just clarify, I talked about link worker for us.
Yeah, so I think we were just having a little trouble trying to clarify what the intended reference for link worker was, because I don't really feel like that's our essence of what we do. Because we do supply resources for when clients go home, but we are actually the people that are being referred. So that would be kind of, I guess, maybe the position of the people that are referring them to us, link worker, or maybe you can just
I
describe
think
a definition.
my understanding, because like a liaison is kind of, I think probably where that idea came from, but
Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, okay. Okay, so that yeah, that makes more sense. So yeah.
I think we just never really heard it.
Yeah, we've never heard it say link, we've never heard link word. Is it?
Yeah,
Sherry's saying it's a social work word.
it's like a broker. Yeah,
Broker. Okay, we're the
that you're the
broker.
one that's like basically connecting
Or
the clients
yes,
to the resource.
community
Right.
connector. Yeah.
And we do that, but I think more our first and foremost, we like to do that connection piece. So we're meeting the people, our clients where they are, like in the ER, or if they're in hospital or in community, or they're receiving care at the RAC clinic for mental health or substance misuse, any of those things. The connection is what I find is the most beneficial start. Some question. Sorry, can you just repeat the question? Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. So based on your experience, what is the most critical function of we can say, community connector, and how do they empower a patient to take control of their own health and well-being?
Right. Yeah. So I guess this is one of the comparisons that we kind of draw from our nursing background for me and Jess anyway, is that when we meet one of our clients, we always start thinking about how we're going to make things different for them when they go home. And that is actually parallel to what a bedside nurse would be doing. So I guess that's where our skills and experience come into play, is that we're looking at things that maybe they can do better, or they can navigate their healthcare better at home with the right resources. So for a bedside nurse, they're talking about, like, if you're diabetic, they're talking about how you can eat healthier. We're talking about when we're making that first initial connection, especially if somebody is using drugs or alcohol, we're looking at things that they can do in place of, or in things that they can kind of manage their health differently at home. So we all talk about community, we talk about connection, we talk about culture, and some barriers that they might be facing to having those real connections. So I guess in a more holistic view, we're talking about replacing the things that are like not healthy for you with more healthy choices. And again, we're never judging. So that was one of the most um quintessential positions that we take. We come in, we're the friend. Even though we work for Fraser Health, which is a major health authority, we're nurses, we could be staff there. We don't come in like those people. We come in as the friend, the advocate, the voice, the ears that we're listening. So when we're hearing those things that maybe a regular nurse wouldn't hear about spirituality or connection, we kind of try to take on that role to bridge those gaps, because it's quite different than just going home with a prescription and physiotherapy. So, but yeah, we look at definitely the client when we first meet them, and build that trust, build the relationship, make sure that they're feeling safe talking to us, and then trying to change some goals from a different way, not from a hospital perspective, but an Indigenous perspective. Yeah. Can they see me on the? Oh,
All right. And it looks like there's a question in the group chat. I can just read it out. I'm wondering about the follow-up process after patients are connected with these services, in brackets, addiction, health, physio, and how long they are followed for. That was from Nico.
Okay. Yeah, so for that one, like typically with our role, our priority is inpatient hospitals, but obviously we do want to make sure that they're doing well. Part of our role is we want to support that transition from hospital to home. So usually what we'll do is once someone's discharged, like we're kind of adjunctive to Fraser Health in the sense that we're kind of assuming that everything's put in place as it would for any other patient. But because, we really want to support Indigenous health, we have to have that follow-up. So we'll call them in the community and say, okay, like how have you been doing so far, and try to identify any needs that they might have. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll connect people to resources either verbally, or we'll send them emails with information. So we kind of give people the tools, but it's really up to the people that we follow to kind of follow up with it. And then usually what I do anyways is I'll do another telephone follow up in the community, and just see how they did with the resources that were provided, if there was any other support needs that were identified. If they don't have anything, like we don't have capacity to follow people long term. So what we'll do is we'll close their file, but we'll give them our referral line number. And we'll tell them like, though we're closing your file, if you need something, call us back 1-866-766-6960. It's our referral line, and it's like a voicemail system. It's confidential and it's checked regularly. And then if a support need arises, then we'll connect then and see how we can best help support. Does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah.
Great. Sounds like it did. Yeah. Great. Okay. Can move on to the next question unless there's anything else anyone wants to add or ask. Okay. How can land-based healing or traditional cultural practices be respectfully and effectively integrated into a social prescription?
Okay, so I guess it would kind of involve like, encouraging the elder to reconnect with cultural practices, such like as attending like local drumming circles. Like I know we were talking that there's going to be one on New Year's in Chilliwack at the Blue Heron Reserve, where they'll do like cultural drumming and for the new year there, like craft group storytelling gatherings or like land-based activities such as medicine walks or seasonal harvesting with sacred medicines. These kind of spaces kind of allow for elders to be more with people who kind of share their cultural background and to take part in tradition that supports emotional and spiritual well-being.
Great, thank you. And Darlene, I'm not sure, are you wanting to add to that?
No, I think she got it. Again, firmly believe that when we kind of reintroduce culture at the bedside, for a lot of First Nations people, either they're willing to do the work to reconnect, or they sometimes aren't even ready for it. So I'd like to be that person to be like every First Nations person wants to be connected to culture and that, culture saves lives and it's very holistic and it's healing. But we also experience a lot of First Nations people that don't want that connection. They're not ready for it because it takes a lot of heart work. And we have to, again, meet them where they're at. If they just want to have somebody to listen to and they want, a, an advocate at the hospital, we're willing to do that too. So there are different levels of connection, but it's not all the same for everybody. Some people are very connected, some people are moderately connected, and some people just don't want the connection. So it's kind of, we do it all. We wear many hats in that capacity. Oh, sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you both for sharing that. I'm going to move on to another question. So, social prescribing emphasizes co-creating a plan with the patient. Can you describe a scenario where a patient initially came in with one identified need, but through your discussion, you co-created a culturally relevant plan that addressed a deeper underlying social determinant of health?
Yeah, I think this is one of my questions here. We kind of divvied them up by evens and odds, but for this, it's tough because like with Indigenous social determinants of health, like they've actually identified that, having Indigenous ancestry in of itself is a social determinant of health and everything is quite interrelated. So it's hard because we do quite often, we'll have a patient who's like, oh, so I need this, but I could also benefit from this. So like, for example, like, sometimes we'll have people who come in with, if they have extended benefits with First Nations Health Authority for counseling and they're just there for counseling, but then, maybe they also need, like other aspects as well. Like, for example, aside from like programs, like we have the Restoring Balance program that's out of Chilliwack General Hospital every Friday. So maybe they also need that connection with people, or like that group setting to do their kind of journey. But yeah, a lot of like the social determinants of health are interrelated. Like sometimes you'll have people who struggle with their finances. So then with their finances, it's hard to get funding for specific things. So, and everyone's kind of in different spots. So, I mean, through our assessments, we only can try to probe and figure out like what their needs are. But a lot of it too comes from the patient, and it depends on them on what they need help with and what they want us to help with. So it's funny because if you like speak of like a specific example, it's like one of those things where someone asks you like what TV shows you like to watch, and then all of a sudden you've forgotten every TV show you've ever watched. That's kind of what's happening. But I know there's definitely been times where we've helped people who came in with one specific need, and then it's like, oh hey, but what about this? And then you identify that need. So I can't think of a specific example, and plus we want to keep patient confidentiality, but yeah, I mean, through our assessments, that's where like we have that like nursing background, so we can assess that like like medical needs in particular, but it's also beneficial to have social workers on our team too, because they also bring that perspective as well. So that's why it's important that we have an interdisciplinary team. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's the best I have.
Thank you so much. Darlene, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think yeah, I think Jess covered it. There was that was number 6, was it? Yeah,
What's that news?
no, it was number 5.
Oh.
Or minimum. I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay, great. So it looks like our next question will tie in with community resources per your slides. So I'll just read that out. So this is, yeah, question 9. A social prescribing program depends on strong community resources. What steps would you recommend to ensure that local Indigenous-led community groups and services have the capacity and sustainability to handle a potential increase in referrals from healthcare providers?
Oh, yeah, this is an easy one. I'm going to say we would have to lobby the provincial and federal government for more funding, for treatment beds, for transition from hospital to treatment centers, to the resources that we need. Um, there's a there are a lot of resources, but I often feel that they're underutilized as well. I feel like there has to be better alignment, especially with our Indigenous patients coming from hospital to community. I feel like the wraparound support needs to be closer. Oftentimes we see our Indigenous patients leaving hospital. They were there for detox or withdrawal. They need to go on to a treatment center, but they have a 3-week wait in between. That's very typical, and that's the minimum. So like 3 weeks to 6 weeks to maybe even a couple of months before they can actually see the actual treatment beds that they're needing. So the resources are fine. They're out there. I feel like people do utilize them. They're not overutilized at this point. And again, I feel like those relationships need to be built. They need to have that real hands-on support to get into them, because I know firsthand that when I offer some resources from the hospital, there's some great community events, there's some Aboriginal Pritchett centers, other resources. I kind of feel like unless I actually do the referral myself and make the appointments and do a lot of that hand holding, if you will, it's not going to get done. So as it stands, community resources, I feel, are almost underutilized, unless it's like a wraparound care handover type. Yeah, and that was the question there. So the increase in referrals from healthcare providers at this point hasn't been a lot. We get a lot of our referrals from social work, from nurses and patients specifically. So the referral process is actually quite different to many other programs. With our program, anybody can refer. So even the family member who wants extra support for their Indigenous loved one in the hospital can phone and leave the referral. It's not like where if you're wanting an OT or a PT assessment, you'd have to go through a doctor or like Meditech to make the referral from a nursing perspective or somebody from staff. So it's different, and that's actually designed in a way to reduce barriers. So it doesn't have to be anyone specifically referring for our team anyway. And I feel like the barriers are coming down as well for mental health as well as substance treatment. Those are very often self-referral, or even a nurse from the ER can make those referrals too. So those barriers are coming down. But we love hearing that healthcare providers are doing the referrals though. Because actually, I don't know if they know that the referral process is that simple, but I've heard actually a nurse leave a referral and say the doctor's ordered a referral for your team. And I'm like, yay, that's a win. So we like that. Yeah. But as far as yeah, an overflow, I don't see it happening. Not now, not yet.
I'm just curious, can you maybe walk us through like what happens once you receive the referral, like that process?
Yeah, so like I said before, people phone in the referral to our referral line at 1-866-766-6960. And on there, it's a confidential voice system. It's checked regularly. I know during the day, Monday to Friday, we have what's called a desk nurse. And her role is specifically to check the referral line, process it, put it through our system, and then triage it to the different liaisons at different hospitals through Fraser Health. And usually, like the thing with our program too is we're not urgent response. Sometimes we'll get referrals for people in ER, and you know, say if they had a bad experience, sometimes people will want us to come in there right away, but sometimes we don't always have capacity. And how our program works is we typically kind of work almost like a doctor's office in the sense that we have a schedule and we have appointments that we put in for each of our clients. And then as we get new referrals, we have to kind of you know, even triage that and do with what's most important. So obviously we will prioritize those who are in emergency because they can be turned around quite quickly. Those who are palliative are expected to pass, and those who are in ICU. So those ones we all try to see like right away, but generally our rule of thumb is that we'll connect with you within 24 hours of receiving the referral.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. All
Yeah.
right, I'll move on to our last question here. And then we can open it up to whoever wants to
Sure. And I
ask
actually had a
away.
couple, sorry, I had a couple more
Oh,
slides I can finish off with too.
perfect. Okay, so I
Mary's
guess
gonna take question 10.
perfect. I'll read out the question and then we can go from there. Okay, so in your
Oh,
experience,
I can't
how
hear it.
does
Sorry,
um,
I think I missed it.
oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. In your experience, how does a successful social prescribing program for Indigenous patients not only improve an individual's life, but also contribute to the broader goal of decolonizing or indigenizing the healthcare system itself?
Right. Okay, so I think that successful social prescribing would be um, utilizing both the Indigenous worldview and the Western perspective of medicine, and using two-eyed seeing, I'd say, would be, acceptance of both realms of healing, the healing the whole self, not just the psychosocial, but also the cultural and spiritual. So I think social prescribing would probably best way to do that here. Good.
All right. Thank you so much. Jess, was there anything you wanted to add to the last question, or Darlene?
Yeah, I think Sherry nailed it with two-eyed seeing approach. Like I think honestly for successful integration of social prescribing, you do have to have to those perspectives. Um, I think yeah, it's definitely she nailed it. I got nothing more to add.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So at this point in time, we can just open up the floor to any questions. Feel free to send them in the chat, or unmute yourself.
Yeah. Did you say we're going to do the
All right. There's a question in the chat. I don't know if are you guys able to see it, or I can read it out from Jeffrey.
That's fine.
Sorry, I'm just reading the question. Let's see here. Oh, thank you. So we actually work together with First Nations Health Authority. So quite often, like, you could refer to us, and if we need to, we can always reach out to First Nations Health Authority if we need them to kind of step in. I know they help a lot with, they have their own mental wellness navigators. The roles in themselves are quite similar, but I think the First Nations Health Authority team, I know they're undergoing some changes and people have moved in their roles there. And obviously I think they have a lot more on their plate with the region that they cover. So you could even just refer to us, and then we can also connect with First Nations Health Authority depending on what it is. A lot of the times it's kind of like extended benefits navigation. So those who carry status do have coverage for counseling, and there's medical supplies and equipment benefits, and dental and prescription coverage as well. So I mean, honestly, there's no wrong answer on that. You could refer to both or refer to us, and we can always connect with First Nations Health Authority or First Nations Health Authority. And we work quite closely together. So there's no wrong answer. If they need something from us, they are really good at reaching out to us, and vice versa. We have a really good partnership. Often we would meet together for a community of practice where we would get together with First Nations Health Authority. But I think that we haven't had a gathering yet. But yeah, we're in close working relations. So yeah, there's no wrong answer. You can go to either. I hope that kind of answers your question.
And if it's okay with everybody, I'll just finish off my slideshow because I find it's important that we recognize people that we work with, and the work that we do is very important. Because our area that we cover through Fraser Health is actually from Burnaby all the way into Boothroyd. That's just past Hope in BC. So it's a large coverage area. I think that they've managed the program well. We do a lot of handover for uh from IHL, like say for example, somebody's coming from the Royal Columbian Hospital and they go out to see Jess. So our communication back and forth is imperative to make sure that the continuity of care is there. So it's just a couple of our people here. This is an outreach event that I don't know if you can still see the slideshow. An outreach event that we go to just to kind of promote our program and to meet people where they're at if they need the resources. That's just there on the far right. In the middle, Chelsea, she works out of the Abbotsford, and that on the inside left is Miranda, our clinical coordinator. She does an amazing job. And next picture is here. This is our whole IHL team. As you can probably tell, most of with the exception of one or two people from the original program, everybody on our team is either First Nations, Métis, or Inuit. We have that real lived experience, and we feel like that's an important part of the role too. So we reach people on that personal level where they feel like they see a familiar face. They recognize, features in our physical bodies that are very important to build that trust as a First Nations man or woman, or Métis man or woman, and Inuit as well. And all of our people, except for the exception of a few that were originally part of the beginning team. And next picture, this is a Truth and Reconciliation event. These are some of the elders that I work with. There, I'm in the middle. To my right there is Elder Virgil. He's from Thunderbird First Nations, and we just did a little bit of an outreach education table at the hospital this day. And then on the far right picture is one of our other elders that we work very closely with, Elder Fishwoman, and she does a lot of really good cultural healing and work at the hospital as well in the north-south area. Yeah, and that's the end of our slideshow. Thank you so much
For allowing me to show that. It's just really important. We're so proud of our program.
It started with it started with a small inception. Our director even told us tonight that only about 3 Indigenous liaisons were the original group. We had 1 elder at that point. Now we have a small company of about 40 people doing our work, doing the good work. So, yeah.
And then, yeah, I think there was just that one question that I had seen in the chat. So it's, are there any plans to expand this outside of the hospital setting so patients can be referred from community providers as well? So yeah, like anyone can refer. Like obviously our priority is inpatient hospital at this time. So I know like for myself, we've been a little bit more short-staffed. We had one of our full-time who left for a different role to support the elders. So at Chilliwack, I'm focusing a lot more on the inpatients just because of my current capacity. But anyone can refer from community. We love to help support where we can. It's just, it's not as prioritized as in hospital, but we get to it when we can. And like I said, whenever we get new referrals, we try to touch base with them within 24 hours of receiving it.
Great. We can just leave a bit more time for any lingering questions. Once again, feel free to unmute yourself or throw them in the chat. All right. Lots of heart and clapping emojis. So yeah. And lots of thank you. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us as well as your knowledge. I know I found that extremely valuable. So thank you so much for your time as well. And yeah, can wrap it up there.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having us. And again, my apologies for the technical difficulties. We're just doing the best job we can in the moment we have. So the slideshow could have been a little bit smoother, and of course our location, and we kind of jumped in. That's kind of who we are as people anyway. We just make the best of the situation that we're in, and really grateful to have this platform to talk about our program. So I thank you back. Everybody's I hope you take something good out of this and move it forward into healthcare. Yeah, right.
Great, thank you. All right.
Yeah.
And wrap it up there for this evening. Yeah, thank you.